Hey everyone, it's Hans, and welcome back. The Nintendo Switch OLED model. It's an interesting device. It's not exactly the 4K upgrade many people were hoping for, but it does fall in line with what Nintendo normally does with its product life cycles, and that is incremental iterations. In that sense, the Switch OLED model features a brand new gorgeous display and one or two other refinements for the system overall. Thing is though, who is the Switch for? And is it a worthy upgrade for people who have already invested in the Nintendo Switch ecosystem? Perhaps you have a Switch Lite or a normal Switch. Is the Switch OLED a worthy upgrade? Is it something you should even consider upgrading to? Or is the normal Switch still good enough? Well, these are some of the questions I'm hoping to answer with this video. So let's find out. This is the Switch OLED box. It is typical Nintendo Switch fare where it shows the device on the front with what it comes with on the sides, and on the back everything that you can do with the Switch OLED. In terms of the colors of the device, it does come in two different colors. There is the Switch OLED white, which comes with white Joy-Cons and a white dock, as well as a Switch OLED with a blue and red Joy-Con setup and a black dock. That's very much personal preference, but I will admit that the white one is actually quite nice looking, although it is a bit of a fingerprint and dirt magnet for obvious reasons. As you open the box, the first thing you'll see is the brand new Switch OLED and its two Joy-Cons. On closer inspection of the Switch OLED, something that I found that was quite unique is how it feels a lot more metallic in nature. It's also ever so slightly heavier by about 40 grams. So I would imagine that that is partially due to the fact that it feels a little bit more premium. It really does. I was quite taken aback by that, given how plasticky the original Switch feels. And then we have the two white Joy-Con controllers, followed by the rather unique OLED Switch dock, which this time around is white, a lot more curved, and also includes the addition of an Ethernet port. There is also an included HDMI cable, as well as two wrist straps for the Joy-Cons. And then we have a typical USB-C power adapter, which is included with all Nintendo Switches, as well as a unique remote control that you can slide your Joy-Cons in for a more of a traditional controller setup. And that's pretty much it. Anyone familiar with the original Nintendo Switch will actually be quite familiar with these accessories and additions that come with the Switch OLED model. So packaging and accessories aside, what are the other major differences between the Switch OLED and the normal Nintendo Switch? Well, at first glance, you'd be very hard pressed to tell or see any real difference. These consoles are nigh on identical, with the exception of the fact that the Switch OLED is about 2mm longer, I think, and about 40 grams heavier, but I mean, those are honestly negligible. Where there are some differences are in the fact that the Switch OLED comes with 64 gigs of internal memory versus 32 on the original Switch. And then, of course, there is the OLED screen. So this is obviously the major selling point of the Switch OLED versus a normal Switch. It features an organic light-emitting diode display. And as a result, every single pixel on the display, which is the same 720p resolution as the original Switch, is now self-lit versus a typical LED display, which is often side or backlit. As a result, the image on the Switch OLED is sublime. The contrast is incredible. The colors are vibrant. You can only experience true black with an OLED display. And once you're used to it, it really is something very difficult to come away from. Now, the other major difference, other than using OLED technology over conventional LED, is how the Switch OLED screen is slightly larger. It comes in at 7 inches versus 6.2. And that might seem quite small, but honestly speaking, it makes a huge difference in day-to-day use of the Switch. And I found myself often purposefully choosing to play on the Switch OLED versus the normal Switch because of that very reason. Text becomes more legible, things are bigger, it looks somewhat clearer despite having exactly the same resolution. Overall, the screen truly is remarkable. As wonderful as the screen is, it has a really incredible kickstand. The original Switch had a kickstand, but it wasn't all that great. It was flimsy, and if you tried to kick it out a bit too much, you would often pop it off. Goodness knows I've popped mine off more times than I care to count. Now, Nintendo have really looked at this for the Switch OLED, and what they've done is pretty incredible. For a start, it is now metal versus plastic. So not only does that make the Switch OLED feel more premium, but it also means that when you use the kickstand, it is far sturdier. Now, from the perspective of it being sturdy, what I like most about it is that the hinges in the kickstand are legitimately good. In this sense, it doesn't matter how much you open it or how wide the kickstand goes, it will consistently keep up the Switch OLED in whatever position you've propped it in. And that is a far cry from what the original Switch could do. And honestly speaking, as great as the OLED screen is, I think the kickstand is probably one of my favorite parts of the Switch OLED. And it surprised me because it really wasn't something that I was really thinking about at the time, but having that ability to, angle your Switch at whatever degree you find most comfortable really comes in handy for a device that is as portable as the Switch is, especially if you take the Joy-Cons off of the console itself. Now, with the console aside, perhaps one of the only other major changes is how the dock for the Switch OLED now includes an Ethernet port. So for those of you out there who prefer that wired life, you now have a much better option with the Switch OLED. There are a few additional changes here and there, like the volume buttons and power buttons being refined, but overall, the design of the Nintendo Switch OLED is almost identical to the traditional Nintendo Switch. Now, with all of this in mind, with a gorgeous screen, a much improved kickstand, and the addition of an Ethernet port in the dock, does this make the Switch OLED a worthwhile upgrade to someone who already has a Switch or a Switch Lite? Personally speaking, if you already have a Switch, I would say no, because, the differences are minimal. The kickstand is a nice to have, but it's not something you absolutely need to have. And although the screen really is incredible, and it really, really is, it's the cost that would really, in my personal opinion, and it really does at the moment, drive me away from upgrading from the normal Switch. Because in all honesty, the battery life is the same, the overall structure of the machines are the same, the weight is similar, there's no major changes here. So what would I be spending all of that money on? And in terms of money, the Switch OLED retails for 7,999 South African rands, which is a lot of money. It is only a couple of thousand rand less than an Xbox Series X. In dollar terms, that is $350. Now, the normal Switch retails for 1,000 rand less in South Africa, or for $50 left in US markets. So price-wise, it's more along the lines of, if you've already spent $350 on a normal Switch, do you really want to spend another $350 for a better screen and a more improved kickstand? Personally, for me, I want to say yes. And, honestly speaking, if you have the funds, go ahead, do it, because why not? But if you aren't somebody who has that kind of, expendable income and you already have a Switch, I don't think this is really enough of an upgrade. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's great. And if you have the money, do it. But it's not enough, in my opinion. Now, if you have a Switch Lite, on the other hand, and you're considering getting a bigger Switch, or perhaps you don't already own a Switch and you're looking at buying a Switch, from those perspectives, I would say yes. The Switch OLED is absolutely the Switch you should be considering over and above the other one. But of course, in the end, that is a decision for you to make. If you enjoyed this video, you know what to do, and I look forward to seeing you all again soon. Ciao for now.